Welcome back to the Cal Park Bros podcast. Jason and I are fresh off the first segment discussing the merits of the NFL overtime rules. Jason, we didn't even bring up that the Chiefs got screwed over in 2019 by the exact same rules, did they not?
That is correct. And I do want to point out real quick that Andy Reid and Kyle Shanahan both have expressed that they'd be fine with the overtime rules changing. And Andy Reid, like this is going to be whatever you want to say, but Andy Reid even said that he does, in a way, feel sorry or bad for the Bills regarding that specific situation. Obviously, he's glad they won. The Chiefs did, but still.
Yeah, I. It's not broke. Don't fix it. In segment 2, we're going to be discussing the vaccine mandate for federal workers. This is the mandate President Biden signed off earlier this year, or I'm sorry, earlier last year in the fall. And I'm referencing an article from NPR by Alana Wise. Federal court blocks Biden's vaccine mandate for federal workers. A federal court in Texas on Friday blocked the administration's vaccine requirement for federal workers, which has been in place since November, in a ruling that the administration is expected to appeal. President Biden announced in September that he would require the federal workforce of over 3.5 million people to be vaccinated unless they had a medical or religious exemption. According to the White House, as of Friday, 98% of federal workers were in compliance with the policy, and over 92% of federal workers had already received at least one vaccine dose when the mandate took effect in December. The injunction comes just over a week after the U.S. Supreme Court struck down the vaccine or test rule for large private employers. Justices left in place the vaccination mandate for healthcare workers at facilities receiving Medicare or Medicaid funding. Now, that article continues that private companies can still put in place rules for their employees to get vaccinated or face formal reprimand. While some companies like Starbucks have dropped the vaccine or test requirement amid the new legal rulings, other employers like United Airlines have remained resolved on their internal vaccine policies. And just over the weekend, workwear company Carhartt faced conservative outcry for reiterating its company policy mandating vaccinations for its employees. Now, this is funny. This is a funny quote, Jason. Pretty rich from a company sustained by the ranchers, farmers, laborers who make this country great and celebrate her values of freedom and liberty. Boycott Carhartt until they break, conservative lawyer Molly McCann wrote on Twitter. Now, I aside from that crazy ass quote from Molly McCann, Jason, what are your thoughts on this latest ruling?
I think it's just a step in the direction of Biden's overall vaccine mandate just being, silly, waste of time, a joke, and being completely gone. I mean, the administration, as of earlier today, withdrew their COVID-19 vaccine mandate and testing rule for businesses. They've already withdrawn that. So that's done, off the table. It's gone. Now, as far as that, real quick, of course, employers on their own can still do their own mandate if they want, and that is what it is. But as far as this process, I mean, I believe that same article or one from CNN indicated that the Biden administration, of course, is going to fight, the court's ruling on that. But my thought is, like I said, it's basically the first step of this not being a thing anymore. As far as the government aspect, as far as OSHA involved, OSHA. Yeah. So now, but the one thing I do kind of wonder, the article mentioned that the Supreme Court isn't, as of right now, going to mess with the healthcare workers part when it comes to taking away that mandate as well. I don't know if that's going to change. I can see why they would want to keep that, but this is just totally breaking down what Biden has done. Which also goes into what I was mentioning last week when it comes to things that are going to that have happened or are going to happen that are going to get Biden not reelected, even if he is going against Trump. Again, that's an episode for last week, so we'll leave it there. But overall, like I said, I never thought this was a good idea, obviously for personal reasons, but even just, from a ethical, logistical standpoint, It was
Is
never.
it is it ethical or is it logistical, Jason? Or,
Well, it's neither one. It's not logistical or ethical either, but mainly ethical for a government the government to say to people, hey, get well words that I've said several times now, so I don't feel like I need to repeat them. Yeah, it's not ethical. The government shouldn't have a hand on that. Employers, that's one thing, and I again, you know my opinion on that. But I feel like the government should have no hand in saying that. And again, obviously, the Supreme Courts are basically telling Biden and his people the same thing I'm saying.
I mean, the irony, of course, is that the Supreme Court is part of the fucking government. That's
Well,
they are. Are they not a part of the government? Like, come on.
you know what I mean, though. So when I say government, I'm talking about the presidential government, not the court system per se. That's what I'm referring to, obviously. But I see your attempt at humor there. So kudos to you for that.
It was an attempt at humor and logistics and ethics. How about that?
We know you have none of the three, so that's okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I actually looked at a little bit of the actual Supreme Court brief on this, and a big reason why they stated that OSHA couldn't do this is because OSHA previously had never instituted this sort of mandate based off of public health.
That's not within their power to do so. If I have been reading everything correctly, is that what you saw as well, sir?
Yeah, that's exactly what they said. They're not saying that the government doesn't have power to do that. They said this particular arm of the government historically had not done it.
Well, going back to what I was saying before, like I said previously, again, this is all opinion. I think why Biden put it on OSHA, the labor department, to do this, because that was a way of attempting to put it more on employers to do this stuff as opposed to him. Obviously, it's coming from Biden. And now, any employer that's gone ahead and done this because of Biden, I'm also curious about this. What is their stance going to be now? They put this stuff in place for all their employees to do, and I'm sure several employers actually had a lot of their employees comply because of it. Now, all those employers who've said, "Well, we follow the guidelines for state, local, and all stuff like that," which I've heard a lot recently. Well, now what? You had this instituted because you thought it was in place. Now it's not. So now what are you going to do? Because now you don't have to.
Here's what
'Cause now you don't have to. So
Jason, let me put it to you like this: if somebody got the vaccine because they were like, "Damn, I don't want to lose this fucking job," and what are you gonna do? You can't. It's not fucking Windows, Jason. You can't uninstall it. You either got the shot or you didn't. Okay,
agreed.
and so if somehow magically 5% people who were on the fence said, "Fuck it, I'm not losing this fucking gig over this," hey, I consider that a net win
For who?
for all of us
Okay, go ahead.
because hey, in the micro, hey, you got to keep your job, and in the macro, guess what? Maybe that person didn't get as affected by COVID as they would have been otherwise. Who knows? But yeah, yeah, these companies, many of these companies were just gonna from what I'm saying, many of these companies were gonna do their own thing no matter what.
Maybe.
And I know we've been talking about fines left and right, fines federally, fines on the local level. Well, where if company A doesn't do X, they'll get fined.
Well, that's off the table now.
Now, you said that it's off the table. Are you referring to companies that had 100 or more employees?
Yes. Is that yeah, all the fines that they could have incurred by, not complying with the mandate, that's off the table now. So they're no longer subject to that mandate because it's off the table for the moment. So that's what's off the table for the 100 or more employees businesses. Obviously, for federal workers, it's even though it's been knocked down by the Supreme Court, it's still in litigation, as we always say, which the Biden administration could still get that pushed back into place, and obviously it's still in place for healthcare facilities that have Medicare, Medicaid, and stuff like that. But for for that huge sector of people we're talking about before episodes ago, the 100 million people who are of those businesses, they don't have the businesses themselves don't have to comply with that anymore. They probably still will for legal reasons, but technically they don't have to anymore. That's what I meant, sir.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Here's what I'm gonna say. I think it's just another reason. You look at the situation with Carhartt, where you got where now magically Carhartt's too fucking woke for some of these assholes.
Hashtag woke culture. Woke culture. It's at 2022, bro. We're all woke today. Are you woke? Or are you fake woke?
But yeah, Carhartt's got 3,000 employees, and so in spite of that decision, they're still going to say, yeah, we heard you. We're still going to have a policy between these four walls.
And as of right now, that is the right to do so.
Right. And so if it's on a business by business basis, and I also think listen, we can debate whether or not it's ethical to do so.
It's not.
To you.
Period.
Let's be clear. To be clear. Because you're not on the fucking Supreme Court.
Although I should be. Hashtag Calpart Bros for Supreme Court.
Because other companies, not just companies, universities, school districts. I mean, we already covered medical systems that were trying to say, oh, this isn't right. I'm like, your ass work in a hospital, for Christ's sake. You should get this better than most.
Yeah, that's why I think that part's not going to change because of that aspect. Now, and that's again pointing out again, like you said, like we both said, it's for medical facilities that offer or rather take Medicare and Medicaid patients, stuff like that. Which obviously senior citizens typically, mostly, not always, but mostly. So that's probably why that part's never going to go away. Which is what it is. Not advocating for it or against it, but it is what it is.
But yeah, if the proposal did nothing else, it kind of forced a lot of these companies to kind of show their hand. And frankly, a lot of these companies can't afford to be Switzerland on this one. Those are my thoughts.
Well, I will say this. God help this country if anything ever comes out legally that says that businesses don't have a right to enforce that. Then God forbid, God help this country, because there's going to be lawsuits aplenty going around. You just mentioned, we were only talking about businesses. Like you said, school districts, universities, stuff like that. God help this country if that ever happens. So probably never will, because again, they probably recognize the legal ramifications of it. But God help this country if that ever happens.
It's not the legal ramifications.
What I'm saying is, if something comes out legally that indicates that businesses or employers of any kind didn't or don't have the right to enforce something like this, and they did anyway, particularly ones who did it on their own before Biden came out with his stuff, that's what I'm referring to. Because those companies did it on their own without being forced into it by Biden, i.e. my previous employer. That's what I'm referring to. And there's probably lots of businesses out there like that. I'm just saying, because I think you can recognize if that ever happens, the court system may be tied up for a while.
Right. Like Harvey Birdman. All right. That concludes our segment on the Biden mandate on vaccinations with the Supreme Court. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about the Baseball Hall of Fame. Coming up next on Kyle Park Bros.